Welcome to Testimony Tuesday with Pastor Brent Oliver from Delphi First Assembly of God and Kokomo Southview Church. Join in celebrating the goodness of God as we hear the stories of how He touches His people.
All right. Well, welcome today to Testimony Tuesday. And I had interviewed, we have with us Monica DeLaurentis. I interviewed her husband, Chris, for Missions Monday, and they actually work together in missions. But we're working it to where today we're going to talk to Monica about her testimony and then further testimonies maybe that have come through their life in ministry as well. Monica, you guys been in Minneapolis, Minnesota for 28 years.
Correct.
You were sharing with me a little bit before we started about what's happened recently and some things you discovered or rediscovered. Take us back to Monica way back then.
Yeah.
And tell us about what God has done.
Yeah. Like I said, I was going through old journals and calendars that I had written on what was happening that day. And sometimes as time goes on, you wonder, was I really that bad? If it's not in your face, the further you get away from it.
Sure.
And as I was reading, I was really broken because this old Monica was a mess. I could feel her pain as I read it. I could feel what she was going through and how confused she was about life after her father died. Don't know which way to turn. I'm pretty sure was suffering with depression, but didn't know it. School back in that time, they didn't, they just labeled you a bad kid without ever asking what could be wrong.
Yeah.
And my life took a horrible turn at 13 to starting to use heroin and cocaine and other drugs, alcohol. And what I noticed about this old Monica was that while she was so confused, she didn't know who she was. She didn't know what she wanted to be. She couldn't hold a job for any length of time. She could get a job, but she couldn't keep a job. And I tried every kind of job there was. And the reason I believed that I was looking always to have this job was because I felt that I needed to prove that I wasn't a bad person. And I felt that if I had a job, if I was somebody, if I did something, then I can show that I'm not a bad person. I feel like I was striving all my life to prove that I had value.
Yeah.
And I worked at the racetrack as a hot walker, walking the horses. I worked at as an EMT on an ambulance. I mean, how far apart is that? Racetrack, EMT. They're like on separate sides of the planet.
Oh, wow.
I worked in the car industry, service manager, body manager, sales. I just was like bouncing all over the city of Chicago, one place to the other. And never, ever did I read her taking responsibility for her life, for what's happening in her life, or that she could change it. Mostly what she spoke on was how she wanted to die. And so she was feeling pretty hopeless. And it went on like that for 15 years of hopelessness. Just couldn't get out of it, couldn't fight my way out of a paper bag, but just trying to hold on, trying to stay afloat, trying to still put up a front that I'm a good person, that look at me, I'm doing something. But, that all came crashing down after 14 years when I decided that I'm not a good person. And and I can't quit. I can't stop this. I'm never going to stop this. And decided to try and take my life. I never understood how I survived that night because I had no intentions. I didn't leave a note. I just had it. I heard voices in my head saying, "Take your life. You're an embarrassment to your family. To you know, they're embarrassed of you." And I laid down to die that night, but woke up in a emergency room in an ICU 3 days later, and a chaplain was there praying for me, which I did not want. I figured it was too late for any of that, whatever he's pushing. And he was pushing Jesus, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. And then he said, well, you know, they can help you get off drugs. And I'm like, and okay, tell me, what's the detox plan? He told me that they would pray for me. And I can't tell you what I told him because I just wanted this guy out of my room. I just attempted suicide. What kind of nerve is this? You're going to walk in here and tell me some fairy tale about how they're going to lay hands on me and pray for me when I've been through 7 treatments already. And anyway, I threw him out, but this man came back and I didn't want nothing to do with him, but he just came back to leave me with a Bible that a year later, when I had nowhere to turn and my drug dealers were looking to kill me. I was not looking for God. Let's get that straight. I wasn't looking for God. I knew very little about him. And I definitely wasn't trying to serve him. But it seems like back was pushed up against the wall with my drug dealers trying to kill me. And I ended up back at my place, and my mom was there, and she heard about what was happening on the street, and I wanted her to leave because this is how sick I was. I'm looking at her chains and thinking I could yank it off her neck. I'm looking at her purse. I'm thinking I could steal her purse and get her wallet. I'm looking at her car keys, thinking I could steal her car. What I would have done with it, I have no idea, but this is how crazy my mind was. And I wanted her to go. And so I'm yelling at her to go, and she wouldn't. And finally, she just looked me dead in the eyes and she said, if I go, you'll die. And that's when I knew she's not going. She's not going anywhere. So I opened the door and I let her in because I knew she'd get a pup tent at that point. She was not leaving. And she sat down and I said, you want me to go to treatment? You know, I sort of surrendered. Okay, I'm going to have to do something here, right? To appease her. And she screamed, no, you need God. Now, mind you, she didn't serve God either. And she said, I need God. And I said, okay. Now what? I need God. Okay, step 2. What's that?
What's that mean?
Yeah, she's like almost in tears because I'm just harassing her. Like, okay, now what, Mom? And she said, where's that Bible? And I knew exactly what Bible she meant. The Bible I got a year ago from that chaplain I cussed out. She said, where's that Bible? Go get that Bible. And I'm like, I don't know where that is. And I knew exactly where it was. And I heard a voice within myself saying, you know where it is. And so now I'm fighting with her and kind of fighting with this voice inside of me to where I said, all right, I'll get it. And I brought it to her, handed it to her, and looked at her again with that look. Okay, we got the Bible. And I said, what are you going to do with it?
What now, big shot?
Yeah. Now what? And she started crying and she didn't know what to do with it.
Oh my goodness.
But it opened to a page that the man had written and addressed to a Christian home.
Mm.
And so um, she said, let's go here. And I had no choice at that point except to let's go see it, right?
Mhm.
And we got there and there was nobody there. And the house looked like, to me, like it was abandoned, like nobody been there for a long time. And I peeked in the window and there was all rickety, raggedy chairs. I said, look, Mom, nobody lives here. Nobody, and look at this. And I said, come on, nice try, right? I said, too bad. And we're walking away and the neighbor comes screaming out, excuse me, excuse me. And I'm doing this, shushing her behind my mom's back, like, like don't talk to her.
Yeah. I'm about to be free. Leave me alone.
Yes. Please be quiet. And she didn't give up. My mom heard her and ran back. And she said they were away for 2 weeks on a trip and they would be back. But anyway, long story short, I ended up going in that Christian home and I had a hard time. And I think it has everything to do with how we do our ministry today,
Mm.
because I couldn't change like this. First of all, I didn't understand really what was happening.
Mm.
And I didn't know how to pray right. I didn't know how to lift my hands. I didn't want to do anything they told me to do.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of disciplines. They had me scrubbing floors with toothbrushes over and over and over. They had me painting walls. I think I painted the place 3 times. They had me tear off a roof so they can get this new roof on. They had me rake a forest. Yes, rake a forest. They had me move big boulder rocks. I wouldn't move them. And you do that for 8 months and you get tired.
Yeah.
But I was very stubborn and very strong-willed.
Mm.
And but I got to the place where I couldn't do it, and not another day. And I saw one of the staff coming towards me, and I knew she was heading towards me, and I knew it was, that she was going to tell me I had another discipline, and some crazy thing that I had to do, peel 1 million potatoes. I don't know, but I fell on my knees because I wanted to hurt her. It was either I was going to deck her or I was going to fall on my knees.
Yeah.
And because I had it. It was it. I broke and I just cried out to God saying, God, this works for everyone else here. It's working, but not for me. I can't do this. It's not working. And I heard him speak to me saying, you're right. You can't do this, but I can. Something broke that day. Thousands of pounds of guilt and shame and I don't know what was weighing on me, oppressing me, holding me down, seemed to come off of me. And when I got off that floor, I was a changed woman. I was just changed. Something clicked. Me and God connected.
Mm.
We had our moment. And this is months after I prayed the sinner's prayer.
Yeah.
And my life changed. I felt the call of God, went to North Central University, and started Minnesota Teen Challenge. Then went on to do what was really in our hearts to do, which was ICCM Life Center, working with people on the street, people like me.
Yeah.
Who didn't know, who don't know, don't get it, are not going to come in your church and have it together. Then you're not going to pray for them at an altar and boom, boom, boom. It's all going to be fixed.
Yeah.
What they need is a pastor who's going to pastor them through it, who's going to love them through the good, through the bad, and through some really ugly. And that's what we started to do from day one. We just started to love on people, with no expectation on them, except that they meet with God, right? That you provide a format, that you provide a platform that they could hear from God. Some people might look at one of our services, and if you're saved in a church, you might think this is a little out of control, but there's a reason to our madness.
Sure.
It's an environment that's conducive so that people who have 5 unruly kids, right, could come and not be felt like everyone's staring at them, or why they can't keep their kids seated, and that crack addicted mom could be there and worship God, and and love them through it. And we began to see, if in the beginning I thought, no, this wasn't from God. This was from the pit of hell. This vision that we have is straight from Satan himself. This is madness. This is absolutely insanity.
Quit tormenting me.
Yeah, what's happening here? But loving them, persisting, loving, learning, growing myself, right? Where do you learn this? You don't. You learn it by doing it and growing in it, and breaking of your own will, so that God could do it, getting out of the way, so to speak. Get out of the way, Monica, so that God could work in some people's lives. And that's what we did. We got out of the way, and people's lives started changing. People were coming off of heroin. People were coming off of crack. People were who were all living together. There was no one married in this church. Everyone was living together. Started to get married. It got so bad it was like 3 weddings in the same weekend. God was working in people's lives, and people's lives began to really change. Over the years, there's probably been over 26,000 families that we have registered that have came through, and lives have been changed, and they're everywhere. Everyone doesn't stay here, because you got to be called to this work.
Sure.
I never imagined it would happen. I was sure, because I'm mentoring them, that they would love the unlovable and care for the uncareable. But when they got cleaned up, not so much. They started to complain about it. And I realized that they probably need to move on. And so I started an alumni club so that they could feel good.
Yeah.
Right? Just because they're not called to work with that group.
Sure.
Isn't a problem. And so over the years, we've just gone through groups and groups. And I have people who've been with me for 20 years, 25 years, 27 years, because they're called to it. And they want to be part of it. They want to be part of the servant team. And today my volunteer servant team has grown to about 50, 60 people that have stayed and are doing the work. They're doing the men's group, the women's group. They're doing the feeding of the homeless. I mean, they're doing everything. And every single one of them comes out of a background like mine. And the majority are African American, but pain is pain. And what they identify in me is that it's like we bond. They feel I get it. And I can speak to their pain, because I had the same pain. I had the same insecurities. I had the same inferiorities. And so I can speak to it. And in that respect, that they can get healed and get well themselves.
You provide them hope, because your life is a testimony and an example of a before and after.
Yes.
And you provide hope that there can be an after, there can be a change. It doesn't have to stay this way.
Right. And so where this girl who couldn't keep a job for I don't know, a few months.
Yeah.
Today we've been doing ICCM Life Center for 27 years.
Yeah.
That girl that I've been reading her old stuff is so far gone.
Yeah.
Today I know who I am. Today I know whose I am. And I know that there's so many more still out there
Yeah.
that need the love of Jesus Christ, that need this help, that need
Yeah.
this empathy, this compassion,
Yeah.
this not a handout, but a hand up.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people say, well, how can you have done it for so long? What keeps you? And I always think of a child somewhere tonight is in a room somewhere, and things are being done that should never be done to any child.
Mm.
And that child is saying, don't quit. You haven't found me yet.
Mm.
And sometimes when I find them, they're 30 years old.
That's powerful, Monica.
And their lives are messed up.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And that's in every city, every community,
every community,
everywhere.
Yes.
Well, the work that you're doing obviously comes out of a overflowing gratefulness to God for reaching down and getting you and rescuing you.
Right.
And God, however you can use me to rescue more, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing your life's testimony and your faithfulness in the ministry that you've been in. Here at Delphi First Assembly, we've stood with you guys for pretty much all of that 28 years, I think, most of it. And while we may not have regular conversation, obviously we have a connection, and we're grateful to have investment in what's going on there. And your life, you and Chris and the ministry there, may God grant you great fruitfulness in the days ahead, strength and all that you need, because there's a lot of people that need rescue today, and the Lord's after them. Yes. And thank God for people like you that stand there, and the volunteers that you have with you, which I know you would say as well, without them, we're overwhelmed. So we're overwhelmed anyway, but there's no way. Yeah.
Right.
So again, thank you so much today. I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay.
This has been brought to you by Delphi First Assembly of God in Kokomo, Southview Church. To contact us or send us your prayer request, testimony of answered prayer, or Bible questions, please see the information on the screen. May God's salvation through Jesus Christ overflow into your life with His joy. God bless until we see you again.